no matter how many we have. Each and every one is important to us, to our family, and our future. Those sleepless nights and early morning feeds are all made worth it to see you grow. To thrive, to succeed. Knowing that you have been raised to be the best that you can be. I know my job is done.
Well, kia ora and welcome to our live stream today here with NZAgbiz and Fonterra. I'm your host, Sarah Lamp, and we'll be with you over the next 45 minutes or so over your lunch break, wherever you're watching around the country, to join us as we continue the discussion off the back of a very interesting live stream we did in May. It raised a lot of great questions, and as we're getting further into the season, calving's just around the corner, there's more and more that is always burning for you. And so this is your opportunity over the next 45 minutes with our guest panel, as well as our farmer, Craig Copland in Canterbury, to ask them those questions that are burning there for you. So, of course, these live Q&As are all about you. We've got a bunch of questions at the start, but honestly, if you are new to this, please don't be shy. There is a questions panel on the right-hand side as well as a chat. The chat, if you haven't been here before, it does get very animated and people chatting amongst themselves, but it's the questions tab where I'll be keeping a very close eye on, and you can upvote your questions as well. So please don't be shy. This is all about the questions that you have. We do know that a better start in life is the better animal in years to come, and rearing a quality calf goes right back into ensuring that we have a quality and healthy cow to start with. One of the topics today is around the beneficial changes that you can do before calving, and we'll get into a little bit more about that. But with regards to good nutrients and management of the cow to support a healthy and robust calf at birth, we need quality nutrients and management practices around the rearing. And our wonderful calf rearers have tuned in today. I know how dedicated and diligent you want to be in making sure that we have some quality rearing of our calves. So welcome to you all. Now, the other thing too is we also will be recording this live stream. So if there's anybody that misses it or anyone in your team that you think will get some really valuable insights from this live Q&A, you will get sent an email which will have a link to be able to watch that back on demand as well. So as we say, always to kick off, it's awesome to see that you are here, that you're listening, and that we're live streaming all okay. So in the chat, can I hear from you? Tell me where you are watching in from today. It's always awesome to see the widespread across the country. So please let me know in the chat where you are today. And also let me know when your calving date is as well, because that's, of course, a real spread across the country for many as well. I'd love to hear from you. All right, let's crack into it. Now, NZAgbiz is the team behind the trusted products that you'll know, AnCalf and NutriCalf calf milk replacers, as well as Novolite, Electrolyte, and the BioSupport probiotic. So the team at NZAgbiz are incredibly experienced over a long period of time, and our experts today very much supporting the work of NZAgbiz and the future focus and commitment to farming and rearing of our calves to make sure that you can succeed. So therefore, what I love so much about working with NZAgbiz is not only these live streams, but this huge resource within their website, nzagbiz.co.nz, where there is a calf rearing answered And it's Michael, Shallcrass and Khan who's on our stream today. They've produced a huge amount of video resources on there. So please go to nzagbiz.co.nz and look in the frequently asked questions tab, and you'll be able to find out a huge amount of information. I'd love to introduce our panel. And again, if you've been on these live streams before, you'll be very familiar, but I'll give a little bit of an intro to the National Sales Manager for NZAgbiz, Carla Rawson, who was brought up on a sheep and beef farm. She studied science and biochemistry. She worked in the UK for a bit before returning to New Zealand, and she works out of the Waikato, but today is joining us from Okato in Taranaki. Carla, welcome. Next up, Michael Shallcrass, Senior Veterinary Manager there in the top right-hand corner of your screen. He's with Fonterra's On-Farm Excellence team. And whilst he has been a veterinarian for many, many years, Michael, in clinical practice, Michael is a huge asset to the animal health team at Fonterra, with a strong focus on mastitis and bull fertility, but also in ensuring that we're rearing healthy animals for the future. Dr. Ajmal Khan from AgResearch has worked around the world as a senior scientist across Canada and New Zealand. He's here with AgResearch, and Khan does a lot of research in the physiology and nutrition of calves, and particularly he has an interest in Wagyu calf rearing, which I'm sure we'll touch on, as does our final guest, Craig Copland. In the bottom right-hand corner there on the screen, Craig is just not too far from where I am, down in Canterbury. He's a dairy farmer and a calf rearer of Wagyu. Craig milks 1,500 cows, finishes 900 grain-fed Wagyu, as well as growing spuds and apples. Craig rears around 1,800 calves, so he knows a thing or two about rearing calves. I went down the other day and saw Craig's operation. He has an incredible automatic calf feeding operation with ad-lib feeding. So anyone interested in that, there's certainly a lot there to be able to uncover with Craig. But fundamentally, we want to go over the basics today. And as I see, beneficial changes that you can make now before calving, different types of feeding programs for calves, including the use of automatic feeding systems like Craig's, the advantages of feeding calf milk replacer versus the vat, and of course, any best practice advice. And this is, as I said, all about you and your questions. So I'm going to kick into a handful. I can see coming in here, though, before I get to some questions, we've got South Canterbury, Whakatane, Cambridge, Whitford, Te Aroha, Oamaru, and we've got calving dates spread all across from the 17th of July officially, August. Let us know. Have you started calving? When do you start calving? Let's put that in the chat for a bit of fun. Your questions as you think of them, but we'll get now to our panel. All right, Michael, something that I have picked up on that we haven't covered in some of our Q&As is that beneficial feeding and looking after our cows before calving. What can we do now?
Yeah, as you said, some people have got their planned start of calving is in 10 days' time. There's probably not a huge amount that you can do with your feeding between now and then, apart from, I guess, making sure there's plenty of feed available to the cows, but they'll be so far along pregnancy they probably won't be able to take advantage of kind of fully ad-lib feeding. For those of you who are further out from planned start of calving, it is not too late to adjust your cow's nutrition. The body condition score targets kind of set by Dairy NZ of 5.0 for a mature cow and 5.5 for a heifer. Those are set in part for the health of the cow, but also for the health of the calf. So cows who reach kind of appropriate body condition pre-calving, the calves of those cows are more likely to stand and feed kind of quicker than cows that are too skinny or too fat. So there is benefit to the calf in having the cow at the right body condition. And even if you can't necessarily adjust their feeding, what else can you do between now and calving? It's again, depending on your calving date, it's probably not too late to think about vaccinating against calf scours, to adjusting some of the mineral supplementation programs that you've got. Getting your mag sorted, sorting your calving paddocks, making sure. I know the weather has been pretty atrocious for much of the country, but having enough clean pasture to rotate your cows through as they calve is going to have a big impact on the risk of calf disease and things like how quickly the calves get up.
And taking into consideration there's so much of the country that is really wet, so ensuring that you can plan well in ahead is really challenging. We do need to acknowledge that. Craig, what do you do in preparation for your cow's health going into calving?
We always draft them 30 days out from calving dates, and then we give them a TMR, so it's a decad diet. On the feed pad, and cut their grass right back. We only give them a kilo of grass, just more for something to sit on and carve down on, and then fill them up on straw, and we have a pretty good run on that diet. Yeah. Since we cut out the grass quite a bit about 10 years ago, we have hardly any downer cows. I think in the autumn we carved down 650 and we had one downer. And that was it. So what we're doing is working. So, yeah.
I'm going to come to you next, Khan. But, Michael, I just want to ask, though, a lot of calf rearers that are watching aren't actually calving the cows. They're getting them 4-day-old. And so, therefore, being able to have the relationship with the health of the cow prior to calving and things like that, establishing that type of relationship?
Yeah, like ideally, you'd be getting your calves direct from farm, and from a farm that you know and trust. And then even better than that is probably having a discussion with the farm about those management practices that they do that are going to impact the health of the calf. So how good is that farm's colostrum management? Can they provide you with some blood sample results checking for failure of passive transfer to give you that confidence that you're buying decent calves that have been well looked after and aren't going to have a high risk of bringing disease onto your farm. Where I commonly see problems around calf cows with calf rearers is where they go out and they're getting calves from here, there, everywhere, or from sale yards, and there's every extra place that you get your calves from is an extra disease risk.
Yeah. Love any questions in that space, and of course any of your questions that you've got burning away. As I see here from the chat, you're right across the country from north to south, and calving starting as early as tomorrow through to August, so a real spread there. Can we talk there around the automatic feeding that Craig does, but what are the different types of feeding programs that calf rearers are doing?
Thank you, and good afternoon to everyone who is listening. Look, there are the people are using different methods to deliver milk to the calves, and automatic feeding is one and emerging in this area to make some advantages of feeding more frequently and also saving on labor. Yeah, that is an issue on some of our farms when it comes to feeding. But most of the people don't have that luxury, and they're using either bottle feeding or bucket feeding system, so to deliver the milk or milk replacer. So I would say, like, whatever you're using, just use it. If you're using a bucket, if you can attach nipple to the buckets, or if you can provide the nipples, because the calves are drinker, so they like to suck, and that is their behavior. If you can satisfy that ticks the box for the welfare of the animal and give us satisfaction. So I would, where we can avoid the bucket feeding, and use the nipple that is attached to bucket, that is can attach with a little plastic pipe and a nipple, and you can have a nipple that is attached to various nipples to your calf pens or UT bottles. And if you're using these new automatic feeding systems that are being marketed and available, then I would say just get some training, like how to put your calves on those machines. They are machines. They are not they're automatic machines, but somebody need to make some effort to put the animals on those machines, and that effort means the calf knows, okay, where's the nipple, where's the machine. A machine also requires some cleaning and the filling.
Mm. Yeah, Craig, I can imagine that the behaviour of ad lib feeding, or being able to feed whenever you want to feed if you're a calf, as opposed to they get to know those set time of days and that behaviour is all rushing, is quite different to get them used to. How do you start training them with that?
When we start training, we're putting them on from 5 days onwards. What we're finding is, last week we had 30 Wagyu calves turn up from another farm. We put them all on in the morning. Quite a few went back in by the afternoon. But the next morning, so they got 3 litres at that first feed. Then the next morning we had to put another 10 on. We put 10 on that hadn't found the teat again. And then within 48 hours, they'd all worked it out and were drinking a minimum of around 4 litres.
Yeah, I mean, kudos to a dairy animal. They are smart. They do work it out over time.
Yeah, they know where the good stuff is anyways.
Yeah, absolutely. And Carla, I mean, the benefits of calf milk replacer, and please do so in regards to the system that Craig is referencing versus milk from the vat.
So when the farmers are considering what options to feed their calves in terms of a milk source, I think there's a few considerations. A lot of farming operations do have colostrum and transition milk to draw from initially. And then when they're starting to run out of that, then that's a time where they can consider milk powder versus milk from the vat. And usually at that time we can work with the farmer and take them through some numbers. There's usually savings in feeding a milk replacer, so I think it's around $1 per kg of milk solids. Another thing that's quite common feedback, consistency, and adding it in towards the end of the transition milk period, it makes milk more palatable. It can extend out the use of the transition milk, and it's giving that consistency plus all the sort of extra additives like your coccidia-statin, also your prebiotic.
I've just got one question come through here. Fantastic. We're going to take a lot of your questions, so please put them in the questions tab to the right-hand side. You'll have a lot of burning questions, right from Martin's question, which I'm going to put to you next, Michael, all the way through to potentially to weaning, but in preparation for many of you that are just either tomorrow through to a month away from calving. Martin's picked up, Michael, on what Khan said there around teats. And knowing how to buy the right teats. That's actually a question we haven't had in any of our live Q&As. I'll put this one to you, Craig.
Well, over the years, we just stuck with the stallion teats, the peach teats. We found they were good, robust ones. And then with these automatic feeders, we're on the Forster teat that works quite well. It's probably a bit softer than the stallion teat, the peach teat. But yeah, it seems to do the job though, and they like it.
Yeah, awesome. I think we've got Michael's just a bit frozen there, and just saying to the team if they'll just reconnect him through. Let's just keep coming back to around preparation, and I might just highlight with regards to the interesting fact that you told us quite a few Q&As ago about the preparation of the health of the cow when it comes to Wagyu and that longer term benefit that rearing Wagyu in particular.
Okay, I mean, Wagyu, I still consider they are calves, and they're small than the other breed. Their body weight is they're lighter bit. But before talking about Wagyus or anything, in general, like I would just want to say that what already been said by Michael, that preparation and planning is important. Not only for it starts from really from your dry period or even before, and getting to 5 and 5 point, achieving 5 and 5.5 body condition scores in cows, and preparing clean areas, comfortable areas for calving, to planning about how often you're going to pick the calves, and cleaning the barn, disinfecting the barns. So there's a lot of prep that is required. If you prep well, and if you for all the cleaning, all the routines that you need to, including colostrum and everything, that will put you in a path of success. The first thing that you need to do is, again, I want to reiterate, and we talked about earlier, is a colostrum feeding. So the first thing is get your calves as quickly as you can. Yeah, there is a quick. I always say there is a 3 Qs, and then check the quality using colostrometer if you can, and use the first milking colostrum. If it breaks is over 2022, that is a good quality colostrum coming from the first milking after calving, and then feed a good quantity as well. Check if the calf bellies, and if the calf is hungry, just immediately feed as much as she can drink. If the calf is not drinking, and you still can judge that you can feel like, okay, she's not fed directly from her mother, just try to chew feed the calf. So provide a good quality colostrum quickly and in a good quantity, and keep the things clean during the first day for the calf, and that'll give you a good start. It prevent your stock from disease. It will reduce the mortality, will reduce the veterinary cost. It will improve the growth of your animals, and the growth of animals throughout their life, and even the future performance of the animal. And that all is global for any calf, including Wagyus.
I've got a question here, Carla, continuing on from what you asked there. I know there is a calculator, is that right? And just in terms of, I got a question from Kelsey about milk powder. How is it cheaper than vet milk? Can you just explain a little bit more on that?
So probably if anyone wants us to, we can actually, if they want to contact any one of the sales teams. So we've got a territory manager in the North and the South Island, or myself. Our contact information is on the website, and we can go through each individual farm's calculator, but basically what it takes into account is the milk solids that you'd be sending off to the factory and what you'll be getting paid for versus the total solids that you would be getting from the milk powder. And ANCAF is obviously whole milk powder based, and it's if you mix it 150 grams to a litre, you're replacing the same solids as you would in whole milk. So the calculator works out litre for litre what the savings would be. In terms of how it ends up being cheaper, within Fonterra we get ingredients that can't be sold on the open market. So some of those are suitable for use in calf milk replacer. So we use those good ingredients in milk replacer, and we add all the additional bits, and then we can provide that back to farmers as a milk replacer. And there is always a little bit of savings in the milk replacer versus the good milk that can actually go off to the factory.
Yeah, great question. Thank you so much, Kelsey. Now I'm going to put this one to you, Craig. Sam War, hi Sam. He's moving to ad lib feeding for the first time this season, but he's going to do it through drums rather than an automatic feeder. Wondering how well does calf milk replacer remain mixed if left in the drum for the day, or will it be likely separate out over the course of the day? I'll ask you that, Craig, but then feel free to jump in, anyone else after that.
Yeah, I've actually never left milk powder like that. If we've ever mixed it, we've always fed it probably within an hour. With the automatic feeders, it's literally mixing as they drink. The powder drops down from the top and the water's going in at the same time. It's mixing 1.5 litres at a time, and it's fresh. That's how the automatic feeders work. Yeah.
Is it warm versus cold as well? So therefore, in terms of that separating question?
Yeah, so it is warm water it's just heated. Even when we feed calves outside on the big cafeteria, it's still we mix it in 200 litre drums and pump it into the cafeteria, and that's still warm as well. Yeah, but leaving milk powder for a day, you might want to ask one of the experts on that, but I don't think it's a good idea.
Michael?
The things I would worry about there are probably not the separation, but just the hygiene and the difficulty that you have with feeding out of a drum is it's actually quite hard to clean really well. And so if you don't get it squeaky clean between days when you fill it up again, you're just going to transfer more and more and more. Like every day you'll get more and more residual bacteria there. So you might be able to get away with it. And that's, I guess, the question here is you've got a benefit to potentially higher feeding and ad lib feeding, but the risk or the cost potentially here is that the quality of that milk degrades over time, and particularly if the drum isn't and the tubes are not squeaky clean, you may end up with pretty heavy contamination. So it's probably more a process question, and can you hot wash and disinfect the tubes and the drum, like physically scrub them every day? If you can't, you've got to understand that risk that you're taking.
Yeah, sorry. Hopefully that answered your question, Sam. Carla, is there anything that you'd backed up or seen any other ways that people are doing ad lib feeding that isn't through an automatic machine?
Just to add to what Michael and Craig were saying too on the mixing milk powder, I do think it is beneficial to mix it fresh if you can. There is minerals in the milk powder, and they do settle out to the bottom. So unless you've got some sort of way of ensuring that is mixing regularly, you wouldn't want those falling out of the milk powder. Other feeding systems, there's many different ways. Actually, we were out at a calf rearer yesterday who had a fantastic operation. But one of the interesting things that they were doing is they were putting some of their transition milk straight into their feeders and then topping up with milk powder. And they actually had which they drove their feeder trailers under, and it just filled up the milk trailers. So I think what's really important for you is to look at what you've got available and try and make sure whatever you're doing is not going to add too much difficulty and complexity within your systems. And I mean, what they did was fantastic, right? So they put some of the transition milk in, popped a bag of AgResearch and mixed it and topped it up with the high pressure hose, and away they go down to the paddock. So they were keeping things really simple, and it worked really well for their systems. Other places, if you've got a big stainless steel vat, something like that available, and you want to mix up your milk powder ready to go. That's also another way of doing it, and then just filling up your trailers from that. So, if you want our help and support too, and looking at what you're doing on farm, we're happy to come out and have a look at and offer some support.
Yeah, and what a great way of sourcing some advice on, because the NZAgbiz team get to actually see a whole heap of different operations, and they'll put the context of your operation and see what could be the right fit. Craig, I imagine though, are you hearing around the district with labour being so short and people looking for systems that can actually be a lot lighter on the load, and that's why they're sort of leaning this way?
Yeah, well, everybody's struggling, aren't they? For staff. This has been hard. And that's probably why we've gone with so many automatic feeders now. Like, we're putting our 6th one in now just to lighten the load a bit. And I know there's a farm down the road from us. He's put a couple of automatic feeders in also, just to try to get the calf rearing done easier and better. Yeah. Because it is easier. Once they're over that 10 days old, you're just monitoring, checking them and filling up the milk powder and just making sure the machine's fine. Yeah. It's a huge, even one of my tractor drivers said to me the other day, you've got a lot more time this year than you did last year. Yeah.
And that's actually something I want to reflect on, to encourage you to put some questions there, because this live Q&A is all about your questions to our expert panel. We've got right across the board some experts here for you to ask your questions. Cast your mind back to last year if you were rearing calves, but when you were preparing to go into the first day of picking up calves off farm, or if you were going into calving, what were some of those things that you were thinking you'd love to get right? What were some of those challenges last year that you had, and where have you prepared better this year for? Either in the chat, I'd love to know, and as would everybody else listening, but at the same time, cast your mind back to, even the end of the season. Said next season, I'm definitely going to get on top of that. Is it around disease? Is it around weaning? You've got your experts here to ask the questions. So just a little bit of a nudge, as I'd love some more questions to come through. Michael, quite often in the Q&As, we talk a lot around disease prevention, and we've got a lot of people that have prepped their sheds. They're just about ready to go. Just please give us another little reminder on some of those fundamental things, particularly when the weather's been really wet too, and make sure that these calves are arriving into the right environments.
Yeah. So I guess there's two aspects to disease prevention. One is how susceptible is the calf to disease? So that's kind of how healthy is the calf? Is it warm? Has it got enough to drink? Is it stressed by some other thing? And so if you're picking up calves, getting them warm, and it's cold and wet, then getting them warm as quickly as possible is going to help reduce stress levels. It's going to help and kind of improve their immune function, and then getting that good quality colostrum into them as quickly as possible sets them up to be resilient in the face of disease challenge. And then that second part, the disease challenge, is how much disease are they exposed to? So the environment has got bacteria and viruses in it kind of naturally at a low level, but when we start to concentrate the calves in a shed, you concentrate the bacteria and the viruses as well. So if you've got a shed that is overcrowded, or sick calves mixing with healthy calves, then that's going to increase disease risk to those healthy, or the challenge to those healthy calves. So it's not too late to have a look at your shed and think about how you could do things like, even if you've got your bedding and stuff, how could you lay out your pens differently so that you don't, for example, you don't have to move through pens. You can access all the pens from, ideally from both sides, without having to go in and out of pens all the time, because every time you go in and out, you carry a risk of bringing disease from a different pen into that pen. What can you do to keep the pens separate? So solid partitions are great. They're not seen that commonly, because quite often people will be using kind of temporary partitions that are made out of gates or pallets or something like that between sheds. And And then that, again, thinking back to yourself, how much of a risk are you? How much of a risk is the trailer that you pick the calves up in? If you've been picking up calves in the mud, then you've got a contaminated trailer now, and it'd be a good idea to clean it and disinfect it prior to picking up the next lot of calves.
I went on a farm the other day and she was talking me through, and any bikes, any wet weather gear, every day gets sprayed because she just does not want her calves to get sick. And it was incredible diligence, the level that she was going to. Khan, with regards to colostrum, and you're always colostrum quality right from the start, but the importance of that with the immunity to make sure that they're going to be okay in that sort of disease environment, and how important setting them up at the start is.
So again, look, colostrum is the first feed, and we know for the calf. And cattle is different to humans. In humans, the mother can deliver the antibodies from her blood to the young one in her belly, but the cow can't. Cow keep it separate, and that is coming into actually she's excreting those defense molecules into the colostrum, and there's a variety of them. There's not one. There's a broad spectrum. There's against different diseases, and depending on what we have vaccinated the cows, or she is exposed to, or her age or nutrition that we provided the cows, those defense the quality and the quantity of those defense molecules vary in the colostrum. Yeah, but they're coming only into the colostrum. Calf had nothing. No defense when she's at birth. So that's why, I always, and that the only defense system that is she is going to get is through colostrum, and there could be very broad spectrum against common diseases that are causing diarrheas, or like pneumonia or other respiratory diseases or things. So that's why it's important to give high quality colostrum, and the quality of colostrum that we can measure on the farm is through colostrum meter. And it's a Brix value. It's a simple meter that people can just get in touch with their veterinarian and get that little device, and the vet can show them how to use it, and get the Brix value colostrum, separate the colostrum that have a Brix value more than 22, and use that colostrum to feed your cow for first 2 or 3 weeks, 2 or 3 feeds at least, before you transition them either on other colostrum, that is a transition milk basically, or milk replacer, or whole milk. So that is provide actually the defense to the animal, to young animal, for the first month. There's no other way that we can provide those defense molecules or antibodies to the animals, and that is her defense system that we only acquire within the 24 hours her life. So after 24 hours, the ability of the calf to absorb those defense molecules from the colostrum through her gut is ceased.
Fascinating.
So the opportunity lost. So you need to be quick. You need to provide a high quality, and that is the only way we can save our animals. And colostrum is not only providing those defense molecules. Colostrum is also providing much needed the nutrients, and it's enriched in nutrients. It's richer in fat or energy, proteins, and that is what calf need to survive in the first few days of her life. Like if calves are being born outside in wet weather conditions, and you're depriving the animal from colostrum somehow, your poor quality. If you provide them good quality colostrum that can help them survive, can help them maintain the temperature, body temperature, and so on and so forth. So that is a second thing, the nutrient it delivers. Thirdly, it also provides some biological molecules that can improve or help enhance the development of the vital organs in the calf during early days, and that including the digestive system. the gut of the calf, and so on. So there's 3 different effects of colostrum: provision of defense, provision of nutrients during the first few days, and then also the biological molecules that are important for the development of the digestive tract.
Fascinating. In all these live Q&As, I didn't understand that transition between antibodies from a human versus a cow and why to that next level. That was an incredible explanation, Khan. Thank you very much. Craig, how important and how do you go about ensuring that those calves have got the adequate amount of colostrum on your farm?
Yeah, well, we put test buckets on all the fresh cows. So we're capturing it, we're not putting it in the line or anything like that. So we capture it on the test buckets, and then it gets transported up to the calf shed. And then my mother actually still does the newborns. So she does that side of it, and she spends most of the day in that shed at the moment. So yeah, it's just good quality colostrum, and we're feeding them within probably half an hour after milking, and milking the fresh cows and getting that good colostrum into them as quickly as possible.
Okay, I'm not going to lie. I did say that I wanted all your questions to ask them, and thank you very much for sending in quite a few. So I'm going to go down through some of these. Carla, I'm going to ask you Julie's question. How do I transition to milk replacer?
If you can ideally make one change at a time and try and make it a gradual process. So when you're running out of your colostrum / transition milk, if you add in the milk replacer, mix it 150 grams to a litre and replace 1 litre of that colostrum transition milk with 1 litre of CMR, or calf milk replacer, you'll be replacing nutrition with nutrition. And if you can do that slowly over the course of a few days, so take out a litre first day and put in a litre of milk replacer, and do that gradually over sort of a 3 to 5 day period, that's ideal. I know when you're collecting your transition milk, that can go up and down depending on how much you get every day, but that's an easy way to do it. You're keeping your total solids the same. Further down the track, what you can do if you're wanting to deal with less liquid is you can concentrate the milk powder and when you move to a once daily feeding program, so you can double up on the nutrition and feed in one feeding frequency. So that's another thing to do. But ideally, when you're coming over from another milk source like transition milk, first of all, change the milk source, and then further down the track, you can concentrate the milk powder, so that's doubling up on the nutrition.
This might swing in to Michael Harvinder's question around the drawbacks to feeding once a day from birth, or is there any specific number of days to stay on twice a day before going to once a day?
Yeah, so a good question. There are people successfully rearing calves on once a day feeding at the moment, which is so it can be done, but particularly over the first 3 weeks of life, a calf's stomach isn't actually big enough to hold all the milk that it needs for optimal growth. So you've got two issues here. One is that the calf in nature, the calf is drinking 8-12 times a day. So they have a high need to suckle. So from a behavioural perspective, once a day feeding doesn't meet their behavioural demands. So there's a risk of welfare compromise. They're feeling a need to suckle and they can't meet it. And then the other one is that once a day feeding can't meet their complete nutritional needs while they're young. So if you look at the Code of Welfare for dairy cattle that's currently being reviewed by MPI, one of the proposals is to make it a requirement to feed calves under 3 weeks of age at least twice a day. And if you talk to growth calf rearing experts, you will get a better result if you split that feed over more feeds. Again, trying to get back to somewhere between the natural feeding process of little and often, 8 to 12 feeds. If you're doing fewer feeds than that, you've got to feed more, and that's going to come with some trade-offs and compromises. So it's important to understand those. So yes, your calves won't die if you feed them once a day, but they also won't thrive. You have opportunity here to improve your calf performance by feeding them more frequently.
I've jumped over into the questions, but don't make this a habit. The chat, because there's always some good questions that sneak in over there. For you, Khan, Carol was wanting to know if there was some research done on leaving calves on the cows for 12 hours to ensure they got adequate gold colostrum.
Yeah, look, most of the farmers either pick once or twice daily. If you're picking once a daily, you're leaving the calves for about 22, 23 hours with the mother, from anything from 2 hours to 22 hours. So that is quite a bit of time. There is a research that was done like a few years back, where the calves were kept with the mother for either 6 hours, 12 hours, or 24 hours, and in that research is showing like what is happening, like about 45% of the calves, despite being with the mother for 24 hours, had a failure of passive transfer of immunity. So they were not suckling really enough milk from the mother during the early hours of their life. But it can vary, and can be affected by like how your calving areas are, how many cows are there, how many cows are calving, what are the environment or climate conditions around them. So there's but like we can't rely on the mother to feed colostrum for the calves that we are going to artificially rear, especially in dairy cows. So early intervention is better. So I would say, like, if you can invest a little bit on labor or time to pick the calves, maybe twice daily if possible, that is early enough to can provide like a good amount of colostrum. That is the best way to do it, to ensure that the colostrum is being fed rather leaving the animal with the mum for dairy cows in New Zealand.
No, thank you. That's fantastic. Craig, Samuel's got a question that's perfect for you. What's your feeding plan for automatic calf feeders? Do you have a maximum amount each calf is offered per day and per feed? And if so, does the breed affect the volume?
Yes. Okay, we'll start with the plan. So for the first 10 days, for the first, let's just say 5 days are on normal old feeders. They're in pens, we're feeding them colostrum, the rest of it. Then from then on, for the first 10 days, we'll put them on the automatic feeder at 5 litres. The Wagyus might, if there's some small ones, I might actually drop them down to 4 litres per day, because I find they can scare a little bit. And then over the next 7 days, they'll go up to about 8.5 litres. And we've been trialling the 40 fit. So that's something that I've got out of Forster or out of America. So they can, for 40 days, they can literally ad lib, but they're still limited to 3 litres every 2.5 hours. So they can't go in there and drink 5 or 10 litres, you know what I'm saying, So we're still limiting them to 3 litres every 2.5 hours. And then after the 40 days, they drop back, because we've actually got calves drinking up to 22 litres. I don't know how cost effective that is, but we're just playing around with it at the moment to see how we go. But the autumn calves, I know the few that I was monitoring, they were doing good weight gains. They were getting up to 1.5 kilos a day after 90 kgs. We haven't weighed them again since, but it'll be interesting to see what they've done from 100, 110 kgs onwards, to see if they carried on doing that good weight gain. If, we can maintain over 1 kg a day until they calve down again.
Michael, are you seeing that in any research or with regards to sort of different farming systems across Fonterra whereby, adequate or high levels of milk consumption leads to those high weaning weights, etc.? I mean, it makes natural sense, but again, it comes down to cost, doesn't it?
It does, and that is not necessarily clear, the real detail of it, but definitely the more milk solids a calf consumes, the bigger the calf is going to grow. So there's a trade-off here between kind of cost benefit. The more milk solids you give them, the more you got to pay. But what is your payoff in the longer term? And it doesn't actually take much in terms of lifetime milk production. If you've got a better grown heifer and she gets back in calf, but that's probably a huge unaccounted for benefit or cost that people aren't factoring in here. You've got a better grown heifer, she comes into the herd, she can do in the herd better because she's not diverting as much energy to still growing. And then, what benefit have we got on lifetime production or even just production in that first 1 or 2 seasons? And that's an area of ongoing research. But for just from the calf's perspective, the more milk they can get, the bigger they're going to grow while they're on milk. And then, but then we've got to have a conversation about how you transition them off milk.
Yeah, and there's certainly a huge amount of resources around the transition off milk, so we won't get into that part. But before I fly into some of these other more health-related questions, Khan, update on research of what Michael was just saying?
Look, we have quite a good evidence from the global research that is published now that if you feed more milk, these animals, and they can grow more during the first 2-3 months, and I always say they're babies, and they need milk. And that milk is important not only for their growth, but also the growth and development of their organs. And those organs they rely upon for their life. For example, their guts. Yeah. So small intestine or large intestine or digestive tract. I don't want to go into details, but digestive system of the animal. And also there's evidence, scientific evidence, that if you increase the body weight gain in heifer during the first couple of months, is going to affect the development of the mammary gland and the lactation performance of that heifer. We also have evidence from New Zealand data that if in a beef animal, if you grow them better during the first 2-3 months, and if you maintain them on a good pastures, they can finish earlier. And there's a lot of benefits for that, that is very well known. So it's not just a calf that if you're investing on colostrum, if you're investing on your calf through milk feeding, you'll get that benefit in terms of healthy animals that are more productive, and you will also get the return on those animals. So it's not okay, I'm satisfying the calf because I'm providing more milk. Yeah, when it comes to 22 liters, I would say there's no need to go that high. So our recommendation is about 20% of the initial body weight. It makes very near to almost 80% of the ad libitum that the calf can drink, and generally for the first month at least. So if the calf is 30 kg at birth, just try to move towards 6-7 liters. That is maximum. And if the calf birth weight is about 40 kg, then you can go toward 8 liters or more, 9 liter, 10 liters. But you can limit that one, and then for the first 6 to 8 weeks, That is the most important period, where you can feed the maximum amount and then taper it down gradually. If you're feeding more, as Michael indicated, transitioning is super important and should be gradual over 2-3 weeks. Then you can maintain that advantage that you have in terms of growth. Otherwise, you will lose the advantage. Secondly, after you have done your milk weaning, it is important that those animals should be fed properly. You can't actually invest on those animals and then leave them on a poor pastures during summer. They will lose. So you will lose your investment. So provide them a good pasture, good feed, or supplements over the summer, and you will see they will maintain their growth rates higher, and they will be productive animals.
So basically, you want to be on that trajectory right from the start. Any check you never really rebound from.
Start from colostrum, good colostrum. Provide them more milk. Transition them slowly off milk on a good pasture. Provide them some supplements during the summer and the first summer, and there you go.
Fantastic. I'm going to get on to these coccidius management questions, but just quickly, Craig, Diana would like to know the brand of your feeder.
It's Forster.
Auster. There you go.
It's a German brand. But we buy them through GEA gear.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. I thought I'd just quickly ask that. Okay. So, Michael, this is the word I always struggle with. Coccidia management.
Yep. Good. Well done.
Is he using an oral drench? Is it going to be enough?
It depends. So again, it's about expose. As we said before, the resilience of the animal and the degree of exposure they're getting. So, coccidia are a single cell parasite that is a normal kind of inhabitant of adult cattle's intestines. But if calves are exposed to a higher level of them, then before they've kind of built up an immunity, then you can see clinical disease, again, overgrowth of coccidia. So that's what we would term coccidiosis. And that causes, it's usually not fatal, unlike other types of scours, but it is quite contagious. So it will tend to go through the whole mob, and it causes quite a significant growth check. So you do want to avoid it, and that's why calf milk replacer or calf meal often will include something to reduce the growth rate of the coccidia. So that's why it's a coccidia stat. The stat meaning it stops the growth of the coccidia, but that still allows the animals to be exposed to them and to build up that immunity. There is now a anti-coccidia drench that you can give kind of at the time of weaning, and that's a different approach that some people are using. And it's going to depend on your farm and what the risks are on your farm. If you've got a paddock that had calves with coccidia in it last season, there's probably an increased risk that calves that go into that paddock are going to get coccidia again this season. And so taking steps to reduce their exposure or increase their resilience is good. But yeah, you'll need to probably best to talk to your individual vet about your individual situation, because every farm is different.
Carla, a question here from Julie. Is there coccidia stat in AgCalf?
Yes, in AgCalf there is a coccidia stat. In AgCalf finisher there isn't. So there for AgCalf finisher, the calves are a little bit older, so you're probably getting the coccidia stat coverage from your meal, and also AgCalf finisher then can actually be fed to bobby calves. The inclusion rate of coccistop in AgCalf is 0.5 grams per kg of powder. So at the feeding rates that we have on the bag, it also has the weight of the calf. You'll get the full coverage from the milk powder. So it's just best to check that you are feeding to the right amount of milk powder to the size of the calf to ensure you've got the right coverage. While we're talking on coccidia stats too, there has been questions asked of us if our coccidia stat, coccistop, is safe for dogs, because farm dogs love drinking milk, as we know, when we're trying to feed our calves. So just feel reassured that Coxie Stop is safe for dogs. So if your dog does drink and calf, don't worry, it will be okay.
Oh, fantastic reassurance. Thank you so much. Alrighty, we've had a full hour, but I do want to go around our group and just round out on some real key top messages. Craig, I'm actually going to start with you. You know, you're in your own operation, you're learning all the time, you're implementing new systems, but you're obviously having conversations with other rearers who are interested in what you're doing. What are those fundamentals that you always keep harking on to get right with them?
Number one's cleanliness. Clean pens, dry pens. That's number one. As soon as, pens get wet or anything like that, you've just got a higher chance of calf sickness and the rest of it. So I always believe, it's cleanliness. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's key. Yeah.
Can?
I would say it's a time of you're collecting your calves. So consider just try to do as much as you can for good colostrum management for the animal. That I will stress as the first thing. The second is I just want to say what Craig says, use the bedding material that is comfortable and absorbent. So keep it clean and dry, and thoroughly provide the animal additional water from day one. So keep the water in your pens, please, from the first week.
Yeah,
that will improve the concentrate feeding and a lot of other things, and avoid the stress in the animals. Despite don't believe that. Don't just say okay, we're providing enough milk and that is providing enough water to the animal. Just provide clean, fresh water to the animal from the week one.
Awesome, Michael.
I have to pick something different, don't I? Both of those are very good. I would add in the if you are experiencing pressure in the calf shed, think about what you can do to move calves outside sooner. Now, particularly with young calves, you still need to provide them with some shelter, but can you put up a portable shelter? Can you get them jackets? That kind of thing, because if the more calves you have within the shed at any one time, the higher the disease risk, and the more important that getting it is to get all those other things right. That your colostrum management becomes more critical, your hygiene management becomes more critical if you've got more animals in the shed. So if you're feeling like you might need to reduce stocking rate, do it in a way that reduces the stress on the calves of that transition, and that's by providing shelter outside. And
over to you, Carla, those key messages.
Really, I'd just like to say that NZAgbiz support doesn't stop at the webinar. So I think you've already mentioned earlier, Sarah, that on the nzagbiz.co.nz website, there's a lot of resources there. So there's some really great videos, small videos that Khan and Michael have put together to help and assist farmers along the journey. Also on the website is the calculators on the home page. So if you're working out what milk source you want to feed your calves and whether or not calf milk replacer is the right product for your farm, jump on there. Also all the contact information. So if you want support from our team, all of our team are up there on the website, so just reach out or ring our 0800 number, and we're always there to offer support or advice.
Thank you so much to our expert panel, Michael Shallcrass, Carla, Rawson, Ajmal, Khan, and of course Craig Copland, our farmer down in Canterbury. Thank you very, very much to all of our viewers, and for those who have asked questions and participated, particularly in the chat, having a really good conversation with each other there. I really enjoy watching along, because every single Q&A that we do with NZAgbiz, we have a whole nother set of learnings. And this is the thing about calf rearing, is that there is support there to be able to continue your learning journey. To back up what Carla just said, NZAgbiz.co.nz is the home of Calf Rearing Answered, the video series with Michael and Khan. And of course, you are not alone, because we all are focused on giving our calves the best start in life, because that always ends up having a better animal, a healthy and robust cow going into the future. So thank you very, very much for your time on this wet afternoon here in Canterbury, and wherever you are in the wet areas. I hope you have some dry spells very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you so much.